What's up, everyone? It's Matt Rosick. I haven't done a video in a while, but since I've finished the quarter scale Age of Apocalypse Tyrant from DXA Designs, I figured I'd do a video of the finished piece and little instructions for my client on how to put it together and take it apart and all that stuff. This was, right now we're just looking at the base, obviously. So I'm going to kind of show you all the details. So this is my first piece for 2022, and it was a doozy. It was big. I thought the Juggernaut I did a few weeks ago was the biggest piece, biggest single figure. This trumps it by far. It's as far as size and weight and just cumbersome to work with. The only thing that's saving this from like a full-on like 90-hour paint job is it only has one switch out. It's a head, so it's got two heads. But this is a phenomenal kit. This is put out by DXA Designs. It's only a kit option only. I actually personally own this kit also, and I have another client that's been asking me to do his. But after doing this one, I think I'm going to take a break from doing them. Now that I know what's involved in doing this piece, it's a lot of work. It's a great kit. There are some fitting issues, and I'll go over that when I get to the torso and stuff. Nothing major, but it did take some time. Just the prep work alone, even though this is a kit from Ownage, the prep took me 2 days, and that's installing magnets, getting things to fit, sanding some areas that were a little tight, and so on. So starting with the base, it's all done in metallics, obviously, with the exception of the red. Now in person, there's a slight highlight in here. This was meant to look like glowing red, and I could have done a couple other things to make it a little more obvious, but in person it looks really good. What takes the longest on this piece is all the pipe work in here. So if I come in close and show you all the details, all these pipes and wires are all hand painted. And you have to do it 8 times because there's on the bottom side and then up under here is the same details with a few more actually. So that was very time consuming. Just to hand paint those details was a full day just to go in there and paint the pipes. So I went for like a worn metal look, and it was achieved with a ton of metallics. Don't ask me the colors because a lot of them are custom mixes. Like I'm a wet palette and I'll have a bunch of metallics and I'll mix like, oh, I don't quite warm enough metallic or quite dark enough metallic, I'll mix some custom metallics and use that. But 90% of this, with the exception of the main color and the red, everything is hand painted. John Ficci did some cool things. I took some cues from some other paint ups. So John Ficci or Vince Vale Customs, he kind of did this glowing effect. He also did it in here, but I just did it on the columns. So I kind of stole that idea from him. And then the metallic color, I kind of went with like a warm silver. And again, in person, it shows up a little more, looks a little more worn and kind of just, it's got some weathering and stuff in here. But after I did all the hand painting, everything, I gave everything an oil wash. I mixed up a kind of a dark brown oil wash, and I just kind of put it all over the pipes and everything. And then after it dried for, I don't know, an hour or so, I kind of went in there and started wiping some of it away. And then I went back in with some more oils and just selectively put some oils in the creases and stuff and like that. So all the weathering is done with oils. I use acrylics, so I use pastels, but in this case I decided to do oils because I want to kind of I actually did an oil rub on the top and the sides. Again, and the camera's not showing up so much. You can kind of see it right in here, the different variations in the tone. But I actually put the oils on and just kind of rubbed it in with a dirty rag and kind of wiped it off. And it's just really, it's actually a really fun process because it's very free flowing. It's very organic. There's no like rules. You don't have to be super neat with it. And the great thing with oils is you don't like it, wipe it off and start over. I did a little bit of dry brushing, so again, it's more noticeable in person, but just a little bit of very light dry brushing to kind of give some worn look to the metal and so on like that. So the front and the back are exactly the same. The only difference is that this is the front because of the way his feet fit into the base. The only fitting issue I had on this was, and I knew this from when I first opened my kit, is that when you put the base together, so you got the main part is 3 pieces. You have the bottom, this is a separate piece, and then the top is a separate piece, and the columns are 4 different pieces. So you have 7 pieces all together, and this is all epoxy together. It's one piece, is not going apart. So you put the bottom on, then you put the 4 columns in, and then the middle slides down and the top slides down. And the fitting issue there was that it was really tight around where the top and the middle wrap the columns. So to avoid scratching paint, I went in and I sanded a tiny little gap around the columns just so I wouldn't scratch paint, and it went right down, no problem. So that's the base. Now we're gonna work on, this is how I assemble the piece. There's no magnets in the base because the weight alone holds them in place. I know John Feachy or Vince Vell, he put one magnet in the base, but it doesn't need it. So I put the boots on first. And I'll go over all the color. I know all the colors on the body. So in the boots, there are magnets. You may not be able to see it. You can kind of see it. So I put a magnet and then filled the void with Aves epoxy. And so all the metallics, except for the body, are like a matte metallic. And man, this thing looks really awesome. I decided, I took some artistic liberties as far as like from the comic look and what my client gave me. So like in the comic, his soles aren't black, but I painted them black just to give it some separation between the red and the blue. So I put the boots on first, and they just slide in, no magnets. And then I take the body, which again has magnets in the bottom here. And this thing is solid. It weighs a ton. And you'll see little holes in it. You'll see little holes because that's to work with these pieces. I actually drill holes and put hooks in them so I can hang the pieces as I work with them and hang them and dry. So I just slide this guy in there and just slowly put it down. Don't just take your time because this thing does weigh a ton, and it'll settle right in, just like that. Now he's gonna be a little wobbly because I have him on a turntable, but he doesn't wobble normally. Okay, so that's what he looks like there. I'm going to back up because this thing is massive. Zoom out a little bit. So here's what it looks like there. So no fitting issues between the boots and the body. Those fit perfectly. No fitting issues with the boots and the base. The only thing is, like, when you're doing magnets, and a friend of mine asked me to give him a lesson on magnets, you get the most strength when the magnets are touching or super, super close together. And a lot of times on these keys, between the male end of the key, which is on the leg, and the female end of the boot, there'll be a significant gap. Like the male key will not touch the bottom of the female key. So the way I do magnets is I do it so the magnets touch. And if there's any, it's like if a magnet, like when I did the boots, the magnets were actually sticking up out of the female key about, quarter of an inch. So then I filled that void in with Aves, and that just is another way to solidify the magnets in their place. So there's that. So now the next part I put on is the cape. So what's cool about, and I'm going to talk about finishes and the different varied finishes. And when I mean finish, I mean gloss, semi-gloss, flat, and all that stuff. I use flat or matte a lot on most of my pieces. And for the main reason is because it really shows off the shading really well. There is shading on the gloss here, but to get it to really show, you have to put on really, really heavy. And the reason is the way the light refracts through the piece. When you're doing a flat finish, the light kind of absorbs and you're not getting as much bounce back, which kind of destroys your shading. When it's a gloss piece, the light goes in there and it's very reflective, and you're getting a lot of bounce back, which kind of kills the shading. So hopefully that makes sense, but that's one reason I do a lot of flat. And I can control the flatness by how wet I put the Krylon on. So I'll go over colors here in a minute to get them on my spray booth. But so that's how that goes. So the cape's next. And I want to talk about finishes because the cape and the body are the exact same color. The only difference is the cape is in flat. And you'll notice that just by changing the finish, it changes the way the color looks. It almost looks like a different color, but it's the exact same color. So now for my client, there's one magnet in the back here, and there's one on the cape. And to be honest, you really don't need a magnet in the cape because the shoulder pads actually hold the cape on. But if you put the cape on without a magnet, it will want to fall out. So I put a magnet in there, and so hopefully I don't block the camera. But you want to just real carefully because the cape almost hits the base and almost hits the boots. So just be real careful when you put this on there. Just go slow, take your time. And I grab it from the sides, and I kind of put my fingers around the edge here so that it doesn't want to snap in. Okay, and just like that, and it goes on perfectly. Because if it snaps in, you're going to chip paint. So now this was the first part where I had fitting issues, was on the cape. And I'm going to go slowly, and this will be a long video as far as discussing the processes. But look at the difference in color. Same color, different finish. But it looks fucking badass. So I'm going to come in close here. and discuss the first major fitting issue I had. So on the cape, when you first put it on out of the box, on both sides, there's a pretty significant gap right here, at least 1/4 of an inch, if not more. So that was on both sides. I don't care about it fitting really tight in here because that gets hidden. So that gap doesn't bother me. You don't see it. But you would have seen a big gap along the side here. So I was using a hair dryer and clamps, which I typically use to heat resin because you want to heat it slowly. You don't want to overheat it. You don't want to melt it. But other people like using heat guns. Like, man, I'm really nervous about using a heat gun because I've heard you can melt your resin. I've never done it before. So just to get things to fit, it took me about a day of heating, clamping, letting it cool. Heating, clamping, let it cool. Just over and over again. You don't want to do it all at one time. If you try to heat it all at one time and clamp it, there's a good chance you could crack the resin. So it's a slow process, but it took me about a day. That's why the prep took me 2 days. Day for magnets and a day to get things to fit. And I posted some photos on Facebook, whenever it was. This has been a long project, showing that process. But I did use the heat gun on low setting. And again, I would have this clamped and I would heat the cape. And you could kind of hear it moving. And it's really freaky when you hear the resin moving because you think it's cracking. But if you do it slowly, it won't crack. So again, just clamp it, heat it, let it cool. Heat it, clamp it, let it cool. A lot of guys mentioned dipping in ice water. I don't have a bucket big, which I have done for Gundams and stuff like that when I'm heating resin. I don't have anything big enough to put this in. Like, oh, use boiling water. I know that, but I don't have a 5 gallon or a 10 gallon jug to put boiling water in. So you have to use a heat gun or a hair dryer. So that was the first major fitting issue. The second was the shoulder pads, and the gap on that was even worse. And it's a solid chunk of resin. It took a long time to get that to fit. Now I do get a little paint rubbing right here from the shoulder pads. I'm not going to worry about it because even if I touch it up, it's going to rub. But I got a really nice fit on the shoulder pads now. And we'll talk about the shoulder pad issue I had yesterday with this. But here it is. Here's the shoulder pads finished after having to strip them and start over yesterday. I had some initially these were high gloss with a 2K clear. And my goal was to have the shoulder pads high gloss, mask everything off, all these pipes and everything, and then do a matte on the detail paint. I had some issue. I don't know what happened. My clear coat didn't cure for some reason. It's the same clear I used on the body, 2 different mixes. So I may have had my mixing ratio off on this, but I noticed I was starting to get tape tracks. And if I have tape tracks, that means it hasn't cured. I had let it sit for 36 hours. So typically I wait 12 to 16 hours before tape, but after 36 hours, I shouldn't have any issues with taping or lifting. But I had some major issues. I had tape tracks, and I was like, oh, if I know I have tape tracks, I'm going to have other issues. So I went to go peel it off, and sure enough, the clear coat started to peel, and it had adhesion issues. So I had to start over yesterday. It took a full day, about 8-9 hours to strip it down using lacquer thinner, starting over, redid the shading, and actually like a better flat. So again, the shading shows off better. So now this part, you definitely, for my client, when you put this in, there's 2 magnets, and I could have gotten away with 1 magnet. Let's see if I can come up and show you here on this. Come up a little high. Okay. So here you can see the 2 magnets, one there, and you can see my fingerprints in the A's. So that meant that the magnets were sticking up from that female key, meaning that the male key did not touch the female end of the key. So after I got getting my magnets in the right place, I filled this with A's, and I put some Vaseline on the female key or the male key, and I stuck it in there, and it kind of flattened it out and it got to fit. So now those magnets aren't coming out. And you really could have gotten away with 1 magnet. So I was really paranoid about putting magnets in as far as the amount, because I was watching Vinceville Customs. But again, once you get things fitting, it doesn't need a ton of magnets. I could have gotten away with 1. So for my client, when you put this in, this is going to want to suck in pretty quick because, again, I've got 2 magnets. Put your fingers on the corners here. You're going to want to kind of take it, and you want to start from the back and tilt it in very slowly, because if it snaps, you're going to chip paint on the collar here. So I put it in. I'm going to rotate it forward. And again, I got my fingers underneath the corners here, and just very slowly. Don't let go of it. Just rest it in there. And perfect. You're done. So I'm going to talk about the different colors because it's hard to see in camera, but these are completely two different colors. This is a slightly lighter blue. This is a little bit darker, and I wanted to some contrast in there. But the detail paint, this took about 8 hours, but it looks phenomenal. Sometimes you just got to start over on shit. It happens. It's been a long time since I've had to do that. I think the last time I had to strip a piece and start over was it was a base. It was the my second Walking Dead versus Punisher kit. I had to strip the base and start over. Okay, let's put the hands on next. So now these are really, man, as many problems as this project gave me, the results are phenomenal. Just super happy with it. So the hands, the blue on the boots, and the blue on the shoulders are all the same color, same shading. The red on the hands and the boots are the same. The red on the body is a slightly darker tone. So I've got 2 shades of blue, 2 shades of red, just to kind of break things up. It's very subtle. It's maybe be hard to see in camera, but in person it's there. The little gem here, after this is all painted, I masked this off, and I mist it on some Alclad Chrome. I don't use Alclad Chrome a lot because I find it finicky. Got that nice kind of chrome finish, and then I misted on. I have some candy colors from K Colors that I use every once in a while. Misted that on, and then clear coat it. So now it's not such a high gloss, but it's a gloss finish on those gems, and it's a really nice contrast on the gloves. Here we go. I'll put those on. Again, I put magnets in the arms. There were no magnets were installed in the kit at all. And then we'll do the heads. The heads have no magnets. They don't need them. And let's look at the heads because these turned out really awesome. So I'm going to come in close on these in some better light. So now, again, it's hard to see in camera, but there in the head, there's about 5 shades of blue. So if you watch me on Facebook, I started everything in chrome. And I'll go over what I used on that too. I was trying to do candy colors, but the candies just weren't. Candies are one of the hard, next to skin tones, candies are the hardest thing you'll ever paint. Primarily because it's very, very difficult to get them all the same tone because you're dealing with transparents. And if you overlap a transparent just a little bit, it's going to get darker. So I kind of, after trying to do candies, like, okay, this is just way more work. I don't have the right, and you really need like a super clean room because chrome is notorious. Like it shows every little speck of dust and dirt, and I get dust and dirt in all my paint jobs. So I mess with my clients like, hey, look, I'm changing directions. I'm not going to try to do candies. I'm going to, I got a little touch up right there. I'm going to just go with metallics, but the chrome did provide a very, very nice base for all the other colors. It actually worked out really well. For the heads, I was able to do the candies because it's a much smaller area. It's very easy to get a candy look, candy chrome. So I left the heads chrome, and then I misted on a clear blue to kind of get an overall color. And then I went in with that same blue and just hit the shadows a little bit around the eyes. I really hit the inside of the mouth and darkened that up real nice. Now, if I were to gloss this, it would look like chrome. It would actually look like chrome, but I put a matte finish on it. Eyes were all airbrushed with the dark red, and then I highlight with the brighter red, and just kind of let that kind of fade out so the eyes look like they're glowing. The teeth, I hate painting teeth because I always mess them up, but it actually turned out really well the first time. I didn't have like any cleanup. I just went really slow, took my time, just painted them white. They look great. And then he's got this kind of dark outline around the mouth, just a custom blue I mixed up. And then I went in and painted a bunch of little details on him, the pipes and all this stuff. And then also the back of the head. I could have gone a little more crazy with this, but I just picked out a few details that I thought looked really nice. So, and I just kind of did a dark line wash in some of these details, but those look really awesome. So there's the closed mouth head. And then there's the open, and then here's the closed mouth. So I think you can kind of see the shading in there. Again, it shows up better in person, but he's turned out really nice. I love the open mouth, so we're going to put him on there. I just like his attitude, his personality. And there you go. So there he is all put together. I'm going to come down because he's distorted at that angle. And I'll put pictures. I just took photos of this, so I'll put photos at the end of this video, the final photos. But there he is. So I'm going to pause. I'm going to go get all the colors I use. I'll be right back. Okay, so for colors, on the main colors, I started out with a high gloss black. So after I got all my prep work done, I put down a layer of flat black out of just Krylon flat blacks, plain old spray can. And then I hit it with my automotive 2K gloss. Now everyone asks me, what brand of 2K gloss? Any brand will work. I use a brand called Advantage because I can get it here at my local paint store. It's not crazy expensive. I used to use U-Pull off of Amazon, but I found this Advantage. I don't have to order it. It's about the same price for a gallon. A gallon will run me about $80 for a gallon of clear, and when you're done mixing, it's like a gallon and a quarter. So it's a ton of clear for $80. To do the same amount of clear in a hobby paint would be like $500. So it's much more cost effective. You do have to let it cure for 12 to 24 hours, but that's okay. But you get a really nice high gloss finish and it's super durable. So high gloss black, and then I put on, I don't have the can anymore, but it was the Traxxas chrome paint. And man, that stuff is fucking phenomenal. I bought one can. It was $30 for one can, and it gave me just enough to put 2 light coats on everything. So I was able to basically get them all chromed up for about 30 bucks. It was a little on the dark side. So when you're doing chrome with paint and you get a really high reflectiveness, what you're seeing, what's reflecting back is not actually the paint, it's the finish underneath. It's the high gloss. That's why you have to have a high gloss finish to get that chrome look. So what you're doing is you're seeing through the silver paint and you're just seeing the reflection of your high gloss. So typically with all clad or anything, like you go for gloss black, you're gonna have like a darker chrome. To resolve that is to do like a high gloss gray or a high gloss white, and you'll get a brighter chrome because again, you're seeing the reflectiveness of the gloss. You're not actually seeing the paint, you're seeing through the paint, and you're seeing the chrome. The chrome effect is actually from the underlying gloss. So it was a little on the dark side, but man, it looked awesome. So I just hit everything again with a real light coat of Spastex Chrome. Very light, just missing it. I brained it up just a hair. And I get that a very light polish. And that's where I started to try to do the candies that wasn't working. So I just left everything alone. And I went in and I started laying on my metallic paints. So for the cape and the main body, again, John Ficci, Vinceville Customs, always talking about Duplicolor paint. It's a car paint. I put it on pretty light, so when it goes on, it's got a little texture to it, but I just want to mist it on. So for the blue on the body and the cape, I used a Duplicolor Intense Blue Pearl. And this is a nice dark metallic. It was like exactly what I was looking for. And because I did the chrome underneath, it almost you kind of get this really nice candy effect. It was a great, even though the candies didn't work, it kind of looks like a candy because I have the chrome base. So your base coat has a huge effect on what your final finish looks like. So always keep that in mind. So it was this Intense Blue Pearl. And then I have a custom mix of, I call it dark clear blue. And it's a mixture of a clear blue and black and smoke. And it's just a custom color. So I can't tell you exactly what it is. And I did all the shading. And then that was, again, hit with the 2K gloss. For the cape, or for the shoulder pads, the hands, and the boots, again, Duplicolor. This is called Bahama Blue, slightly lighter color. Sprayed those after the chrome. And normally I would have done the red first, but I was already doing blue, so I did the blue. And then the shading on that, again, is that same dark blue. No, I take that back. It's not. It's a custom color I have called Clear Shadow Blue. So this has more blue than black. So you get a real dark midnight blue effect in the shading. It's not so black looking. So it's slightly lighter, more color, less black in that shading. So that's on the gloves, the shoulder pads, and the boots. So that covers the blues. All right, for the reds, for the boots and the gauntlets, which is the same red, it's a base coat of Krylon Fusion Matte Fire Red. Now, this is a little bit on the, it's not quite of a deep red. It's almost got a little bit of orange in it, which is fine. I just think what I didn't want to do is start with a black base coat on red because it'd really muddy it up. So you want to start with a bright color or a base. It's basically just to get the base coat red. So when I put the metallics on, it worked better. So for that, after I did that, let that dry, I put on a couple light coats of Rust-Oleum Custom Colored Chrome. Now this does have quite a bit of orange in it. You can see here compared to the boot, this has quite a bit of orange in it, which is no big deal. Again, I just kind of want it working in layers. Once I got that done, I went in and I have a custom mix of I call it dark red. But again, it's kind of a mixture of Mr. Color, deep clear red with a little bit of black in there. And I did all the shading on the boots and the gauntlets. And to shift the color just a little bit, just to get a little more red and less orange, I just misted on a couple colors of Tamiya Clear Red. And I thinned this with Mr. Color Thinner. So if you didn't know, we can thin Tamiya pants with Mr. Color Thinner. So I misted that on just to shift the color a little bit and got what I wanted. Hit it with a flat, and that's done. Okay, so that's that red. Okay. For the red on the body, I used, after I masked everything off, that took a long time to mask all this off. Because I had to mask the shoulder, or I just got a big old bunch of dust on there from my fingers. I'm touching the cans, hold on. A little brush to brush that off. So masking took several hours, and thank God my masking was damn near perfect. Like I didn't have any little spots on the body that I had to deal with. For that red on the neck and the abs and the thighs, once I masked that all off, again, I went in with a, what did I put down first? I put something down first, hold on. I can't remember what I sprayed. I sprayed a base coat of something. What did I put? Because I just didn't get right over the blue. I did put something down first. I can't remember. It may have been some Mr. Color GX Red. But anyway, after that, I have some paint left over from my Gravin Labs Iron Mans that I did. These are just custom red metallics. So I keep all these in little bottles. I sprayed that on. And then I did, again, my shading with that same kind of clear red just to kind of give the muscle some definition. And again, I wanted to shift the color a little bit. So again, I misted on a few color coats of, actually I put on probably 3 or 4 coats of this. I wanted like a slightly deeper, richer red for that. So again, probably 3 or 4 coats of the Tamiya Clear Red. That was done. So after all that dried, I took all the masking tape off. And then I hand painted all the trim around the abs and the thighs with a custom mix metallic. So, and then also I went in and did all this hand painting in the neck here. So all these little details you can see. And there are little pipes and bolts and stuff. So I want to talk about painting and adhesion and stuff like that. So when you're doing multiple finishes like flat and gloss and things like that, take in consideration how paint works and how it adheres. So when I wanted to, if I want to do any painting on top of a gloss surface like this, you can't hand paint right on top of it because the paint won't stick because you're dealing with a glossy surface. Now, if you're doing it with a lacquer, that'll work. But hand painting lacquers is a major pain in the ass because it dries too fast and it shows brush strokes. You need something that's going to dry slower, unless you'll work with it a little bit longer. So acrylics are perfect for that. Enamels are good too, but they take forever to dry, and the acrylics are great for hand painting. So when I masked this all off, I made sure to leave this trim. I kept that open, so when I went to go put the red on and seal it with the flat, I had a flat finish to paint on top of. So that's why in the shoulder pads, I was having issues because my initial plan was to, again, have the shoulder pads glossed, have this all shining, but then go in and mask all these details off and spray them flat so it'd have a glossy flat, finish. That's where I ran into that. Well, it wasn't because of that, but that's where I found out that my clear wasn't cured, which is a good thing I found out, because if I would have to pack this with that clear like that, it would have shown up to my client in a mess. So that was my thinking there. So you have to think in the correct order to get the paint to stick and all that stuff. So what I did is when I finished this, so when I was had to redo this and strip it, I was thinking to myself, so I'm going to just get all the painting done, all the detail painting done and everything, and then seal it so that I know I have the colors down and everything's cured well. And then I looked at it, I was like, man, that looks really good just the way it is. So I sent a photo to my client, put a photo on Facebook, and I was like, man, just leave it, looks really good. And so if you wanted it cleared, I would have cleared the shoulder pads, everything, including all the little details. And then after that cured for a day, then I would have gone in and masked off and just sprayed a flat finish on the details. So it's very tedious, but in order to get things to stick, you have to have a flat or matte finish. Now I'm going to reverse on that a little bit, because when I masked off for this red and this red on the body, I didn't have a flat finish when I sprayed the red, but I'm spraying a lacquer paint, and lacquer paint will melt the underlying surface, so it'll stick. So if you have something that's a solvent-based paint going on top of a gloss, you're probably okay, because that lacquer is going to melt and stick to that surface. If I were to spray an acrylic right on top of the gloss, it would peel off. When I took my tape off, it would peel. So I was able to spray my lacquer, I let it dry for maybe 2 hours, and then I was able to unmask it and make sure that my paint was sticking. So I wanted to make sure that the paint was sticking, so I let it dry for a few hours, and then I started to pull the tape up. And once I noticed it was stick, I pulled all the tape off. I didn't want to wait till the next day, pull the tape off, and find out I had adhesion issues. So that's the thinking behind that. So it's a long video, a lot of me chatting and talking, but this piece is done. Thank God. First one of 2022. And I think he looks awesome. I think my client's going to love it. This is the same client that had me do the Age of Apocalypse Shadowcat and Colossus. So this is going to go with that collection. And I actually, he bought a Graven Labs Beast kit for me that I'm going to convert into a Age of Apocalypse Beast. So I have to sculpt some pans on and stuff, which I've never done before, which will be challenging. But there you go. Long video, me chatting. Hopefully you find some useful information in this. And I think my client's going to love this. The next trick is trying to figure out how to ship this thing, because I can only use the original box of the base and the body. The cape and everything else I've got to custom pack to make sure it shows up in one piece. But there you go. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys next time. Bye.